Welcome back. We're back on our tutorial, and remember, we're working on this layout. We need a nav bar, and one of the things you'll see here on this layout, we've got this little background thing going here across the side, a graphic. That is something we should pay very close attention to. I just realized now, because if we want that graphic to line up just right, you'll see that it extends beyond our grid, which opens up all kinds of fun little problems. What we're going to do is we're going to add our nav bar. We're going to separate it from the header. We're going to keep it apart from the header. Let's go ahead and try it out. Let's go to our code pen. Okay, so I've decided now, I know I have this ID with a ID of wrapper. I'm going to give this a class of wrapper. And I'll tell you why. If you look at here where I was talking about this graphic back here. Well, if this has one wrapper and this has another wrapper, that gives me room to put my nav right in between. So what I'm thinking here is that's how I'm going to solve that little issue of where we went. Let me just show you what I'm going to do, and then let's go ahead and clean this up here. We're going to add a little bit of padding to our wrapper. And then we're going to put 0 for top and bottom. And then we're going to put a little left hand, 0.5 EM, left and right margin. Maybe we should do a full EM, like so. So it pulls in a little bit of that information that's there. What we're going to do now is I'm going to drop a nav bar, and we're going to do it from Bootstrap. So we're going to go to Bootstrap, and we're going to take a look at their nav bars. And so when we look at the nav bar, we see a nav bar that looks like this. Now there's a lot of extra code here that's kind of in the way. So we're going to look at one of their simpler nav bars. One like this might be all we need to get started. That was a justified nav bar, so we can take a look at the tabs or pills where they're like little buttons. And you'll notice it's just an unordered list with a class of nav. And then you can choose, in this case, nav pills, wherever that went. There it is. All right, so I just had to zoom in on it. And then list items with a role of presentation, and the one that's active will be highlighted. And so we'll take a look at this. They do have a highlighted one. And then you'll see behind it there's like a graphic that's going there behind it. So we can use that graphic and then just go ahead and use a standard pill like this. But we're going to do one extra thing. I'm just going to copy this code here, and you can type that out. The thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to stick it in a nav. And we're going to create our nav here, close it here. I'm going to paste. Whoa, how did that? My cursor jumped to the CSS. And let's zoom in a little bit here. And we want to tab these over and tab over the UL. And now what you're going to see here is this nav bar is all messed up, right? It's all sticking out over here. Part of the problem is that we've pulled it out of that outer container, which had a class of wrapper, class of container. What we can do here is we can make this nav have a class of container. Let's see if that switches anything up on our styles, the way it looks. Yeah, by giving it a class of container here, applying it to the UL, look what it did. It dropped it right inside of here. And the beauty of that now is that we've got a nav tag here that we can apply some styles to it. We're going to give it a class, and we're going to call it primary. So it's our primary nav. And then we're going to go over here. Actually, I like the idea of just calling it primary-nav. And then we're going to go over here, and we're going to do a primary-nav, and we're going to style it. Okay, so let's zoom in on this code a little bit here so we can kind of see what we're doing here. So we give primary nav to our nav class there. We can do a background color, and we can drag a gradient inside of it. So to get a gradient, we could code it out along here, and I could show you that, but there's a lot of online gradient tools we can use. So if you look at the background gradient, it looks like it's sort of clear here, and it gets darker as you go in towards the center, Almost the darkest spot is around here, and then it sort of grays out. Now, I don't know what they have in mind, but we're going to just go ahead and do like from a transparent color to a color stop around here, and then gradually out to one over here, and then have it kind of go off to the side. So we're going to have to work off of percentages of the screen, and it's not going to be exact. So this is something that you're going to have to play around with a lot. Of course, I just realized that this is a class called primary nav. So we got to add the dot. Almost forgot that. Honestly, I did forget it. And then I went and coded a bunch of stuff and then realized it wasn't working because I didn't put the dot in. So now I have it. Dot primary nav. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so you can see what I'm doing in my CS. And I'd like to go ahead and drop this down here. The whole goal of this primary nav is we're trying to set a background gradient. Okay, so we're going to try as a background, use the shorthand, and it's linear dash gradient. And then in parentheses, we're going to try RGBA. I'm going to give it like a white, 255, 255, 255, comma, 0.0. I'm going to make it transparent. And then we're going to make it to RGBA. I'm going to give it black. 0, 0, 0, comma, and this time I'm going to put like 0.7. And we'll just see what that looks like. Now that gradient you will see extends left to right, but it's a top to bottom gradient. And I believe I just put a left in there, and that doesn't work. So we're going to have to figure out. Okay, so that's the linear gradient. It's working on Chrome. It may not work on all the browsers. And of course, we want a linear from left to right. We don't want it top to bottom. So let's quick change that. Okay, apparently, so what we need to do under linear gradient, we're going to write to right, comma. And there we go. RGBA, we give it 2 colors. It goes from very invisible. This isn't quite doing what we want it to. But I've zoomed in a little bit. But let's see if we can add one more RGBA of nothingness to the right and just see if we get that working. Yes, we do. Okay, so we want something like this, but we need to add some color stops, and then we need to make sure it's going to work on all of our browsers. And I'm thinking even 0.7 might be more than we want. We'll have to change these little tabs here so that they show through a little bit better. Maybe it's the color of the text we want to change. All right, so now we got to add color stops. Now, because we can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter on our RGBAs because I want to have them all on their own line so we can see what's going on here. Because these spaces get ignored by the browser anyway. Notice it doesn't change our styling down here. But we need to add some of these color stops in, but now we can see each of the colors we're using. To add a color stop, we need to put a percentage in. So watch what happens. I keep it inside of the comma, and let's say I just want to do 4%. Notice we go into that gradient right about here. That's a little bit more than I need. But you can see there's a little banding going on. It's not the best gradient, but if we go to 0% view, you can sort of see it working this way. And then it slowly fades out to here. But what I can do here now is I can put this at like a 98%. Inside of the comma, it should push it out a little bit. Actually, it doesn't quite work. Let's try something a little different. Let's try 110% and see. Yeah, see, it pushes it off the screen. So there's some interesting things we can do here. I'm going to go back to the 98%. Actually, we started with the 4%, so let's go to 96%. So they sort of match. But we're going to add one more of these colors in. So I'm going to copy, and let's zoom back in again so you can see this. I'm going to hit enter, paste that in, and now we're going to do like 90%. So what that does is we repeat the same colors all the way from 4% to 90%. Let's see what that's starting to look like now. And then let's go to zoom out all the way. So you can sort of see it working here. It's not working over here, probably because our percentages are too small. This is going to take a lot of extra work. And I can just take the percentage off, and I bet that'll do the trick. So we're looking at about the right general technique here. It looks ugly, but at least it shows you how you can start doing this. So let's zoom in on the code one more time to see how we're doing this. So it's a linear gradient, to right, and I zoomed in too close. There we go. And it goes from left to right, which is why I put to right. We use RGBA so we can do some transparency, so we can let the background color sort of show through. So I went from white to black, but the white had no color in it, and the black just has a percentage. I could have done this as black with 0%. It would basically be the same thing. So, and it's fewer characters for me to type. So maybe I should have done it that way. And we'll just repeat that here. Let's see if it looks any different. No, it looks the same. I didn't think it would. Okay, so we're cleaning up our code a little bit here. But we don't know if all browsers are going to support this. So one of the things we want to do is test on other browsers. If you have extra browsers, go take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and copy this link, and I'm going to go to Internet Explorer. And we're going to test it on this. Yeah. Actually, I hate to say it, but the blend of gradient actually works better on an Internet Explorer than it did on Chrome. Wrong window. Yeah, there's banding on Chrome, although that's not 100%. Yeah, 100% view, there's banding. Yikes, that looks ugly. Well, I hate to admit it. We got a Microsoft product actually displaying better. Ooh, so there's probably a reason for that. All right, but what if it doesn't work? We should talk about vendor prefixes. So in order to do this, I'm going to go my fallback place, CSStricks.com. Chris Coyer, also inventor of the CodePen, right, has a whole thing on vendor prefixes. And what you didn't know is I had that open all along, and I was looking at it as we were going. Because gradients have changed so much. Now take a look at this little story of the way gradients have changed. There's the old way. Old gradients were on WebKit only. They're the only ones that supported it. And then there was in between. They had an old angle system where you'd put left, and then the new angle system to right. Then there's a thing called vendor prefixes. So if you look here as a chart, from Chrome versions 1 to 9, it was the old prefixed way. And what I mean by prefixed way is, let's go back to the CodePen we're looking. Instead of just adding linear gradient, you would actually put dash WebKit dash linear gradient. You'll notice it doesn't work because that's the old way of doing it. Okay. There was WebKit, that was for Chrome and Safari. Mozilla, that was for Firefox. There was even MS, which would have been the Microsoft vendor prefix. O for Opera. So all of them had these different prefixes. They had a dash before and a dash after. We take that off, and this is the newer one on Chrome. As you can see, not my favorite gradient. So here we go. So Chrome, we got the way it works. The newest version of Chrome is new. We don't need a prefix. But the older versions of Chrome, and we're just, at the time this was created, it was 26 versions. Let's see where we're at now. Let's do help and about. I'm sure we're way beyond 26. Yeah, we're on version 46, so that's been the case for quite a while. And so the one I just showed you is the new unprefixed, they call it. Safari 6.1 is new and unprefixed. Firefox from version 16 on is new and unprefixed. Opera, new, unprefixed. So the nice thing to know is that all these new unprefixes is what I just did. So then we have to figure out, do we support the older browsers or not? So if you want the absolute deepest browser support possible, a linear gradient could look like this. Fallback could use just a JPEG background image or just a background color. And then this SVGs for scalable vector graphics you could use for IE9. And then you could do the old prefixed WebKit gradient, linear, left, top, right, top, from, etc. And so there's this whole list of code, And as they say, doing it by hand would be error prone and a lot of work. Auto Prefixer does a good job with it. You have this thing called the compass mix-in and a lot of other things you can do to sort of make these work. Or you can just go online to a gradient generator, which may be the best way to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and try that right now.